Hi friends, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. Happy Ugadi to all of you. So today is 8th session in our SQL program, SQL for data analysts and data scientists. In the previous session, we had discussed about joins and unions because pretty often data would be split across multiple tables. And depending on the data structure and depending on exactly what we are trying to achieve, we might have to combine the data either using the concept of joins or by using the concept of unions. And we had discussed the difference between the two and how to perform each of them in yesterday's session. Today, the agenda is to talk about subqueries and Tableau, subqueries in the SQL language using PostgreSQL, of course. And if time permits, we will talk about triggers also. Otherwise, we will take up triggers tomorrow. So this is the agenda that I have in mind. Now, I'll switch to PG admin tool. Before we start with subqueries, yesterday when we were running joins, I showed how to join the data coming from two tables. But what if your data is present in 3 tables or 4 tables and you need to join them? Okay, very quickly, I will give you one small demo here. I'm connected to the Postgres server. As you can see, I'm in the training database, which we created for this training. And down here, yesterday, when we practiced the concept of unions, I created 3 files, May, June, and July. Of course, this was for union. However, because I need 3 tables, I will be using these and perform a join. How do I join the data coming from 3 tables? So select star, means I want to get all the columns from the table with the name May and do an inner join. Inner join, I'm going to do an inner join with June. Okay, you can see the table June over here. When we say we would like to join the data coming from 2 tables, it is necessary to mention what is the join clause. Because if there is no join clause, if there is no common field, then we cannot join. Okay, how do we specify what is the join clause? On is the keyword to be given. Okay, I'm selecting all the columns from May with an inner join with June on the field called as day, which is present in May, with the field name day, which is present in June. So this is just going to join both the tables, May and June, based on the day field. You can see 4 columns from May and 4 columns from June are combined together, and we have a big table with 8 columns in it. That is what join does. It combines the columns. And the number of rows returned would depend on the data and the type of join. So here we did an inner join, focusing on common data. So on the 28th day, some transaction has happened in May, and on the 28th day, a couple of transactions have happened in June. So 28 mapped with 28 forming a row. Again, 28 mapped with 28 forming another row. Okay, that is the concept of join. Now I need to include another table in here. So what to do? Just I will write one more statement. Inner join with July on the clause. In May, we have a field called day, and in July also, there is a field called day. Simply, I'm including another table into this join. And when I run this, what will happen is the join of this will be joined with this. And there is no common data. Look at the number of columns they have increased. 1, 2, 3, 4 from May, and then 4 columns from June, and then another 4 columns from July also got combined over here. However, there is nothing in common because the join clause does not satisfy any condition. It's not returning any data. Let me change this to left join. So after doing an inner join between May and June, let's say I want a left join with July. Then what will happen? We will get everything from here, from the left side, okay, this, and then matching data will be fetched from the July thing, and we don't have matches. So we have our join output, and here, because there is nothing in common, nulls are being padded. So let's say I want to change this to right join. I'll just have to change that to right. When I change it to right join, what will happen? Let me run it and show you. So I'm getting everything from the right side, which is basically the July table. And for any of the days, 2nd or 15th or 21st over here, there is no matching record on this side. Because there is no matching record, nulls are padded. Okay, like that, if you have another table with which you want to do some inner join or left join or right join, maybe you want to now include students, the students table. Okay, again, there has to be something in common. Okay, as long as there is a common field, you can keep adding as many tables as you want into the join, and it will perform the join and give you the output. Okay, so one of you had asked yesterday, how do we write a join if we have multiple tables, more than 2 tables? If we have 3 tables, how do we write it? We write it like this. Okay, I hope this is clear. So it was more like just a recap on the concept of joins that we discussed yesterday. We will now start off with today's topic, which is to learn about subqueries. Okay, it is to learn about the subqueries. Now, what is a subquery and how does it help us? To understand this, I'll have to do some data setup first. So I'm going to do it now. Anyway, the notepads are already being shared with you all, so you know how to. You already have the queries given to you all, so you can just open that, download that notepad, and you can run the queries from there, okay? All right, so I'm going to create a table with the name department, which will have 2 departments in it, IT and HR. And I'm also going to show you the data. In one go, I will run all the 3 queries to create department, to insert data into it, and also to show those departments, okay? For which I will go to my query editor and run it. But I already have a table with the name department. Therefore, I am going to drop it first. Okay, I'm just showing you the data setup part. Okay, sorry. Before we go there, before we actually do the data setup and do an example, I will give you one very, very simple example to explain the concept of subquery. Once that is done, we will do the data setup. Okay, apologies for this. So you see here, I have one table called as marks. Okay, I already created it and kept it ready. So let me just fetch the data and show you. Select star from marks. If you notice here on the output area, we have 7 records for 7 students, different students, and we can see the marks that they have obtained, overall scores or marks that they obtained in the exam. Now, what if my requirement is to get the list of those students whose marks are greater than 35 and less than 60, in that range, greater than 35, less than 60. How do we do it? We can simply fire a select query where condition is used, where the student marks is greater than 35 and the student marks is less than 60, isn't it? If we run this query, it is going to show me only the names of those students who've scored more than 35 and less than 60. So if I run this, you can see the list get updated. There are 2 people who've scored more than 35, less than 60, in that range, basically, in that range. Now, I'm going to write a query that is going to give me the names of the students and their details, where the marks are less than or equal to 35, below 35, or greater than or equal to 60. So it is the other way around, right? Now I want the list of those students whose marks are less than or equal to 35 or greater than or equal to 60. So apart from these 2 people, I should get the rest of the students. If I run it, out of 7, I'm getting 5 students' details. Look at the marks, less than 35 or greater than 60. Okay, so this very simple, straightforward way of writing the query based on the requirement and fetching what is necessary. Now we can do this using a subquery also. Okay, suppose I was I have to use a subquery, then what will it be like? So if I have to use a subquery for this requirement, I need those students whose marks are not in this range. Okay, I need the names of the students whose marks are not in this range, not less than or equal to 35 and not greater than or equal to 60. Which means this, right? I can run this query and get it, but I will do it with a subquery. So I need to select from marks where marks is not in this list. Other than that, okay, I need everything that is not in that list. So what will happen when we write a subquery? Okay, the subquery will be evaluated first. Whatever is the query that you write in the subquery, okay, nested query, first the inner query will run. Just focus on the logic, okay? It is going to execute the inner query. When it runs this inner query, when it runs the inner query, this is the result. Now, I need information for those people who are not in this list, whose marks are not in this range. Okay, so then the outer query will run. The outer query will run. The inner query has already fetched some data, and the outer query is going to get all those records from the marks table where the marks is not in this range, where the student marks is not in this range. Okay, so when I run this, you will see it gives me the other two students thing. Okay, student marks. Okay, so where the student marks is not in this list. Look at this, the other two people. All right, so what does a subquery do? The technicality of a subquery, I hope you're able to understand. We can do it in a straightforward way like this also, but I'm just trying to drive the point of subquery over here. So when you write a nested query or a subquery, the inner query will run first, fetching some data. And for whatever is the data fetched by the inner query, the outer query will work on it, depending on the condition that you're using. Right now, I'm saying not in that list, not in that list. So I'm getting everything else. You could say in, you could use less than, greater than, less than equal to, greater than equal to. So whatever might be your condition, accordingly, you can fetch the data. Here, I'm fetching the records for those students whose marks are not in whatever is obtained by the subquery. Okay, now when we do a few more examples, you will get more clarity on this. So remember, this is one example where I use the not in scenario. Now I will very quickly do some data setup. I'm going to create a table named as department and then insert two departments data, IT and HR, and also select it. So you can see these are the two departments available. Now let's say I'm also going to create an employee table. Okay, where I have the ID and there is name. Name is the employee name. Now I'm purposely keeping it ambiguous here. Here in department, there is a column called as name, which is the department name, IT, HR, etc. Here also I have a column called as name, which is the employee name. Salary, department ID, and foreign key, which is referencing the department ID column. Okay, so there is a foreign key constraint, which means what? It is going to reference the ID column here. It references the parent table, which is the department table. And only if an employee's data is being entered into a department that is valid, it will allow for the entry. Otherwise, it will not. Okay, if there is any confusion on this concept, please refer to the video where we talked about primary key and foreign key constraint. So table is created. Now I just need to put some data in there. After putting the data, I will also show you the data. Okay, so we have data for 5 employees. We can see 3 of them belong to department 1 A couple of them are in department 2, and we can see their respective salaries. Okay, we can see the salaries of the employees. Now, let me tell you what the requirement is. Data setup is done. You know that there are 2 departments, and you can see the list of employees from each department. Now, the requirement is I need to come up with the list of employees whose salary is less than the overall average. Okay, we need to fetch the names of employees whose salary is less than the overall average salary offered. This is a very important scenario. Quite often you will get such questions where people would want to see how many employees are getting less than the average salary. Okay, how many people are being given more than the average salary? What is the average salary we are offering? How many people are below the average line? How many people are above the average line? Okay, this kind of analysis is done pretty often. So first, what do I need? I need to know what is the overall average salary that we are offering. Okay, average of the entire data present in the salary column. How to get that? Simple aggregation, which we have already discussed. Select average of salary, and I can give an alias also. Okay, as average. Alias means as is alias, an alternate name. I want to store the average salary as average. I want to call it average from employee 2 table that I created. So when I run this aggregation, when I run this query which has an aggregation, it is going to give me the average salary, and it is going to show that average as average itself. Over here you can see. So what has happened here? It fetched the average of the data in the salary column, which is stored as average. So you can see average here, and the average salary is 81,400. Based on the data that I have entered, it is 81,400. Okay. In the notepad that is shared with you all, it is given as a different number because data is different. You will have to use 81,400. Okay, please remember in the notepad it is wrong. All right. Now I need what? Names of those employees whose salary is less than the overall average, right? Then how to build a query for this? I need all the records, all the columns from the employee table where the salary is less than the average, which is 81,400. That is what I need. List of employees who are below the average line. So when I run this, it's going to show me the names of the employees whose salary is below the average, 81,400. So we have 3 people who are being paid less than the overall average. But let's say a couple of, in a month, maybe another 10 more employees are recruited and their salaries are fixed. Okay. In that case, this number could change, right? If we recruit more employees, then they are offered certain salaries. The average could change. It is right now 81,400 that I mentioned here is a hard-coded value. It is a static constant value. It has been hard-coded as 81,400. It should be dynamic. Whatever is the latest overall average, that should be in this query. Whenever I run the query, depending on the number of employees that we have at that point of time, we need to get the average of their salaries and then the employees who are making less than the average. So this 81,400 should not be hard-coded because it will not always be so. It will keep varying. It is going to vary depending on the number of employees and how many people would join, how many people might quit. So how do I make sure that at any given point of time, I have the latest average? I need to replace this with this, isn't it? How did we get 81,400? It is this query. So this is the subquery. What will happen when you have a subquery? The subquery will be performed first. It will run first. So when I run this, 81,400 will be fetched. Then the outer query will work with the data that is brought by the subquery. The outer query will work with the data that is fetched by the subquery. So it is going to give me the data from the employee table where the salary is less than whatever is fetched by this query, which as of now is 81,400. So it will give me the list of employees whose salary is less than 81,400. If a new employee's record is inserted into the table, let's say one more employee is recruited. Another employee or a couple of more employees are recruited. Let's say Jack and Sarah. Okay, are recruited. And let's say this person is being given 70,000. And this person is into department 2 and has, let's say, 95,000 or something. Okay. Now, when I run this query, the number of employees have increased, right? Earlier we had 5 employees. Now we have 7 employees. So what will happen to the average? That will also vary, right? That will also change. Now the average salary could be different. So it is not 81,400, it is 81,714. Okay, so the hard coding is removed. Now I need the list of those employees whose salary is less than the present average. Whatever is the present average. So when I run this, you can see these 4 people are getting a salary of less than the average. So by removing the hard coding and instead of that using a query, we can make sure that at any given point of time, we get the correct data. Okay, so that is the purpose of a subquery. It is making everything dynamic for us. Okay, let's see one more example. Subqueries is not a very easy concept to understand or master. I will try my best to explain it with multiple examples. Some example or the other will help you understand it. Okay, we'll drive the point home. So let's say now my requirement is to get the highest salary by department. Let me just take the data first. So this is the complete list of data that I have. Which I'll store in an Excel. Okay, now suppose I need the highest salary. Okay, if I'm asked to fetch the highest salary. So this is the ID, this is the name, this is the salary, and this is the department ID. This is the department ID. These are the columns that we have. Okay, this is the header, and these are the columns that we have, and this is the data in there. Okay. Now, what if I want the maximum salary? Simple. I will say select max of salary from employee 2. It is going to fetch me whatever is the maximum salary, which is 95,000. It's going to show me 95,000. Okay, maximum salary I got, fine. But my requirement is to get the maximum salary grouped by department from each department. What is the maximum salary per department? So what to do? Maximum salary is giving me the overall, but I need it per department. So I will have to group by department ID. Okay, I'm going to group it by department ID. So when we use the group by clause, what will happen? We had discussed this in the previous sessions. Okay, let me do one thing. I will show you the department ID also over here. The department ID also, so it will be clear. Okay, department ID as well as the maximum salary. So under department 2, the maximum salary being offered is 95,000, and under department 1, the maximum being offered is 92,000. So what will group by do? All the records corresponding to department 1. Okay, they come together forming one group. It is grouping by department ID. So all the records corresponding to department 1 is one set, one group. And all the records corresponding to department 2, they come together forming another group. Okay, you can actually visualize it like this. You can visualize it as if these are going there and sitting along with all the ones are coming together. Okay, all the twos, department twos are coming together. You can visualize. This is how grouping is happening. It's grouping all department 1 as one block, one bundle, department 2 is another bundle. So over here, the maximum salary is 92,000. And from here, the maximum is 95, which is what the system has returned. SQL has given us. Let's say, apart from seeing the department ID and the salary, I also want to show the name of the department here. Department 2, okay, but what is that department? Is it IT? Is it HR? Is it finance? What is it? Department 1, what is the name of that department? Now, how do I get it? Because in the employee table, we only have the department ID. We don't have department name. So if I need to fetch the name of the department, I need to join it with the departments table where I have the department name and ID. Okay, so I need to join it. Here, data is split across two different tables. Again, we will see. This is what we have in the employee table. And what do I have in the department table? In the department table, we have the department's ID and we have the department's name. So department name is called name and department ID is simply ID. Okay, department name is simply name. Now I need the name. 1 is IT, 2 is HR. That name I need here. But it is... So what will I have to do? Because name is in a different table, I will have to join. So here I need to join the two tables in order to achieve the purpose, to show the name of the department along with the maximum salary from that department and the department ID. How do I write a join now? I will take this query, or let me start fresh. I need to select department ID. Okay, I want department ID and I need name also, department name. But if I simply say name, it will throw ambiguity error. We saw yesterday, because in employee table, there is a column called name, which holds the employee name. And in department table also, there is a column with the name, which holds the department name. Okay, and the nomenclature, it is ambiguous. Name is present in both tables. So when there is ambiguity, how do we focus on it, or how do we fix that problem? How do we tell the system exactly from where what I'm trying to fetch? By prefixing it with the name of the table. So I will have to say specifically department.name, means this field name should be taken from the table department. And then what I need? Maximum salary. Why am I not prefixing salary with the name of the table? Why am I not prefixing department ID with the name of the table? Because these are unique names. These are unique. They are present only in the employee table. Okay, so the names are unique. When the names are unique, you don't have to worry much. But if the names are ambiguous, you must prefix it with the name of the table. So this is what I need from employee 2. From employee 2, I will get department ID and salary. Okay. And I need to obtain the department name. For that, I need an inner join with the department table. On which field? On the ID field. So from employee table, it is supposed to take the department ID, which it is supposed to join with the department table's ID field. Okay. So like this, I need to join. And then we are trying to fetch the maximum salary per department, right? So the grouping has to be there, group by department ID. If I write like this and run it, it's going to throw an error. Why will it throw an error? Because the number of columns, okay, it will still throw an error. You see, because the number of columns that we are selecting and the number of columns by which we have grouped the data is not the same. I hope you are all able to recollect the concept of grouping. So whatever is the column list here should match the column list over here. So I need to include department name also. Okay, now this will run. Now this will run properly and not throw any error. Look at that. So I managed, using the concept of joins, I managed to show the names of the departments, not just the ID, the name of the department, as well as the maximum salary from that department. What is department 1? I know now that it is IT and I can see the maximum salary. So till here, we have not yet used any subqueries. We have data present in 2 tables. We are obtaining the maximum salary per department from both the tables joined together. So far, subquery has not come into picture. Now, what if I might want to see the name of the employee who is getting that maximum salary? Okay, I know that 95,000 is the highest salary being offered in the HR department, which is department number 2. But who is getting it? Who is the person who is earning 95,000? Who is the person who is being paid 92, which is the highest? So what to do? Let's include employee name also. Okay, let's say I will simply include employee name also. And when we know that when we have the list provided here, should match the list of columns provided here. So I just need the employee name as well. I'm going to just include employee name and run this query and see what will happen. What is happening here right now? The whole thing is gone, right? What was our purpose? To identify the name of that employee who was being paid the highest salary in that particular department. But when I included employee name, my whole calculation went wrong. It's just showing me the complete list. Why so? Because when you use group by, remember it is going to group the data depending on the entire information. So it is grouping by not just department ID now, not just the department details, by also the employee name. So how are groups getting created right now? How are groups getting created for the combination of department as well as employee? Okay, so Ravi, who is in department 1, and of course we have joined department name here, right? We have joined department name, where department 1 is IT and 2 is HR. 1 is IT and 2 is HR, right? So now the group by clause is going to work slightly differently. Now it is grouping by the combination of department ID, department name, and employee name. So wherever this combination is unique, all the similar combinations will come together. So IT1, Ravi, is one unique record. IT department, which is ID1, and Ravi is the name of the employee, is one unique record. Again, IT department, Shilpa, is another group. IT department, Jack, is another group now. Jack is forming another group. And this employee, Rama, is another group. Okay. Similarly, HR2 and Priya is a separate group. So the way the grouping is done has changed, because now the grouping is happening on combination of 3 fields, not combination of just department ID. Okay, not just on department ID. It's happening on the combination of 3 fields: department ID, department name, which is anyway unique combination, and along with that employee. So the way the grouping is done itself has changed. It is almost row level data. The combination of the three are unique. It is row level data. If at all I had an employee with the name Ravi, okay, suppose there was another employee with the name Ravi itself, okay, or with the name Shilpa. There's another employee with the name Shilpa and she is getting a salary of 50,000. Suppose we had data like this, okay, then this would have been one group. Because combination of department ID, department name, and name of the employee, all the three together is one group, and all the three matching, this would have been one group. Out of this, 92,000 is the highest salary would be the answer. Correct? But that's not the case. Here, what is happening? Every department, every employee, combination is giving us a unique record in that table. It's almost like row level data, and we are seeing everything. So I hope you all understood. By including employee name here, why did I fail in achieving my final output? I failed in getting my output by just including employee name like that. So what do I do? This is not wrong. I'm not supposed to include employee name here. That much I realized. Because my requirement is to keep the grouping at combination of department and department name level and identify the maximum salary from that department. This is my requirement. However, now I need to get the name of the employee also. So in this case, subquery will come and help us. Okay. In this case, subquery will come and help us. How do I use subquery? So I'm going to take department name as well as salary. I'm going to take the department name and the employee name because we need employee name, right? Okay, we're going to take employee name and the salary from employee to with an inner join on department on this clause itself, where we will use the where clause, where the department ID and salary should be in whatever is fetched by the subquery. This is the subquery. Department ID and max salary. I can also take this as salary as an alias from employee to grouped by department ID. Grouped by department ID. So how is this going to run? Okay, how will this work? How will this work is, it is going to first run the inner query. We know that. It's going to run this query where it will group by department ID. It will group the records by department ID and fetch the ID and the salary details. ID and the salary details. So like this. ID and the salary, which is the maximum salary. It is fetching from the employee table by grouping by department ID. Then the outer query is going to bring all of this data. Okay, it's going to bring this data with an inner join and all that, where the department ID and salary would be in this list. I'm using in now. First example, I showed you not in. Next example, I showed you the less than symbol. Okay, here what am I showing you? In. So this query is fetching the department ID and the maximum salary. Then I'm going to run this outer query. The whole thing will run together, but the order of execution is this will run first, fetch this data. Where the department ID and salary are in this list, for that we are fetching the information. Whatever information we might need, we are fetching. Look at that. Okay. Department ID 1, department is IT, highest salary was 92. Now I managed to even show the name of the person who's getting that salary. Simply by using the group by clause, it didn't work. But when I use a subquery and fetch the data that is present, that is coming as a result of the subquery, get the details of that. Now it worked. So I hope you're all able to understand. how this thing has worked. Behind the scenes, what is happening? How is the query being executed step by step? Inner one first, then the outer one, working with what is fetched by the inner one. Okay, so we'll see one more example. With this example, I think even if there is still any doubt in your mind on the concept of subqueries, it will get cleared. After that, I shall look at the questions. Okay. Now, the thing is very simple. We know what is the data we are working with. Suppose we need to find the second highest salary of an employee. We need to find the second highest salary. So we already saw salary thing. Select max salary from employee 2. What will this give? It will give us the highest salary, which is 95,000. I'm saying let us fetch the second highest salary. How do I get the second highest salary? Right. If I can get the salary of those employees whose salary is less than the maximum. What am I telling you? I'll write the query. I'm going to select salary from the employee table. Okay, where the salary is less than the maximum. So I'll just put this query in there. What will this do? What will this query do? Give it a thought. What will this query do? It will select all of those salaries from the employee table where the salary is less than the maximum. Okay, so these are the list of salaries. These are the list of salaries. It's going to, it obtained the maximum. This is the max. I'm asking for the salaries which are less than the maximum. So this query which I ran, which I will now run, will return all of this. Less than the maximum means it will return all these. Let's run and see it. Look at that. Everything that is less than 95,000, except for 95,000, everything else we obtain. Okay. Now I need only the second highest salary, not all of them which are less than the maximum. I don't need the complete list of salaries which are less than the maximum. I need only the second highest, which means the maximum of this list. Correct? What is the second highest? Of all these salaries which are less than the maximum, of all the salaries which are less than the maximum, from this again I need the maximum. From this list, if I take the maximum, that will be the second max. Okay, so how do I do that? Get me only that I'll just say max of salary. Right? Maximum of the list of salaries which are less than the maximum salary. If I run this, it's going to give me the second highest, which is 92,000, as you can see, which is the second highest. Now, what if I need to get the third highest, fourth highest, fifth highest? I have to keep nesting query inside a query inside a query. It is not an efficient way of doing. Okay, this is just to explain the concept of subquery. Using the less than symbol, we are doing it now. So we obtained the maximum, then looked at the maximum of the salaries which are less than the maximum, thereby giving the second maximum. But the efficient way of doing it, the most efficient way of doing it, suppose I need to get the top and the salary, then what to do? We already discussed. I hope you are able to recollect. We had discussed the concept of offset and limit. So by using the concept of offset and limit, we can achieve it. So how do I do that? Select salary. I'll say as, give an alias name, as second highest salary from, of course, the employee table, which I'm going to order by salary in descending order. So let's just run it till here. All of them will get ordered in descending order. Okay, then I need, if I say limit 1, it's going to give me the first row, which is the highest, but we want the second highest. So what to do? Offset. So because it is the second highest salary, I need to use offset 1. If I use offset 0, it will give me the highest, because remember the first row is given the offset of 0. If I say offset 1, it will give me the second highest, 92,000. If I say offset 2, it will give me the third highest, 90,000. You can see here, 90,000 is the third highest. Like that, if you want the nth, top n, you should give n minus 1 as the offset. Okay, if suppose you want the top 5th salary, you need to give 4 as the offset. So nth member, offset should be n minus 1. Okay. All right, let me just check your questions now. Okay, so this is about subqueries. I hope you got some understanding, some fair understanding of how it works, because it's not an easy topic. Subqueries is not very easy to learn and master. You need to practice all the scenarios which we discussed today. Please do practice each and every scenario. If necessary, multiple times. Try to write those queries rather than copying them from the notepad. Okay. All right, there are no questions today. Okay, I hope it is because you all understood and not because it's confusing. All right, so let's proceed then to the next concept. We are going to be working on triggers. So I will give you an introduction to the concept of triggers today. We will take it further tomorrow. Today we'll just take an introduction, and tomorrow we are going to learn about triggers and indexes and DCL commands. Okay. I'll explain it from the notepad. Okay. Now, what is a trigger? It is a dynamic thing which happens, which you can invoke. Trigger is something that you can invoke while either inserting a record into the table or while updating a record in the table, or when you are deleting a record from the table. So triggers are invoked while inserting data, a record, a tuple, updating an existing row, or deleting a row from the table, and they will do some activity. Trigger is like you pull the trigger and the bullet is released from the pistol, right? Similarly here, when we trigger it, it is going to call a function. Okay, when you trigger, when you pull the trigger, when will the trigger be pulled? Either when you're inserting a row or updating a row or deleting a row, which you can mention in the trigger. Focus on this part. How do we create a trigger is, we use the syntax create trigger followed by the trigger name. And when is it supposed to get invoked? Before inserting records into the table, or while updating records in the table, or while deleting a record from the table. Okay, before insert, before update, before delete on certain table. For each row, it is something that works at row level data for each row. And what is this trigger going to do? What will happen when you trigger it? It is going to call a procedure. It is going to execute a procedure. Now, what is a procedure? Procedure is nothing but a function. Function is a collection of statements. It is a collection of code which will do certain activity. Okay, it is a collection of code which will do certain activity. And once the trigger calls the function will perform some activity and return the response to the trigger. It will return the trigger. Okay, so let us understand this with a scenario. Now, I'm going to create a table called as sales data. This is a table where we have the customer name, the product name, whatever the customer would have purchased, selling price, and the number, the quantity of items purchased. Now the total price is supposed to be calculated. Okay, it will be the quantity multiplied by the selling price. Sales multiplied by quantity will be the total price. That is something we know, but the system doesn't know yet. So all it knows is we are trying to create a table with certain columns in it, and I will run this. Table is created successfully. Now, what's my requirement? I will insert some data. Okay, suppose I need to insert this data. When I insert this data, what will happen? It is going to, of course, take the data and insert it into the table. However, you will notice that it has taken the name of the customer, it has taken the name of the product, it is taking the sales value and the quantity. We are providing all this data. But our expectation is that the total price is supposed to be computed and inserted into the table. So when the user tries to insert a record into the table with this detail, total price has to be computed and inserted. Along with this record, total price also should be inserted. However, it should happen dynamically. 500 sales multiplied by the quantity 5. So 2500 is what I need here. 3000 multiplied by 2. 6000 is what I need here. How is this going to happen? Every time a record is inserted, how can we tell the system to calculate the total price and then insert that also? Okay, for this, I need to write a function, a procedure with the logic. Okay, so what will the procedure with the logic look like? It is basically a function. I'm going to create a function. See, when we are trying to create a database, we say create database and then give the database name, right? If you're trying to create a table, we say create table and then we give the name of the table with which we want to create it. If we want to create a view, we say create view and we give a new, we give a name to the view. Create view, view name. Create table, table name. Create database, database name. Similarly, if I need to create a function, create function followed by that the function name. The name of the function should have blank empty parenthesis. It will not take any arguments. So just remember by heart the syntax that the name should be followed by empty parenthesis, simple brackets, no arguments are passed over here. What is this function supposed to do? It is supposed to return the trigger. It returns trigger. Generally, when you're writing any functions in any language, usually the function is going to be kept between open brace and closing brace. Like maybe it opens like this and closes like this, or it opens like this and it closes like this. So here in PLSQL, PLPG-SQL language, where the triggers are written using that language, this is the beginning of the function and this is the end of the function. It is $2, which is equivalent to putting something like this or equivalent to putting something like this. Okay, in other languages, you will have something like this. Here in PLPG-SQL, it starts with $2, ends with $2. If there are any local variables that we will be using in the function, we can declare them. This is not mandatory. Without local variables also you can do. The function is going to begin. What is it going to do? It is going to take sales, multiply it with quantity. Why new? Because this is going to happen upon inserting new records into the table. Right? When you're inserting data into the table, it should happen. So new dot sales multiplied with new dot quantity and being stored in a temporary field called total. And that total value is being assigned to the total price. If I had not declared this, if I had directly given new dot total price is equal to this, it would work. Okay. All I'm trying to demonstrate is if you want, you can also declare local variables and return the new value. End. You begin the function. After writing the logic of what the function is supposed to do, we end it. And the language used is PLPG-SQL. This is the syntax for writing a function. There is no shortcut for remembering it. We just need to by heart the syntax. Create function, function name with empty parenthesis, returns trigger as $, declare local variables, begin, write the logic, end. And the last statement should be this. So when I run this, the function will get created. Look at this. The function got created. Calculate total price is the function. But I need to trigger or invoke this function. I need to call the function and ask it to work, ask it to perform the multiplication. So we need to create a trigger. What will the trigger do? It will invoke the function. Okay, so I'm going to create a trigger which is going to invoke the function. When should it invoke this function? When should it invoke the function? When should it execute this procedure? Before inserting the row into the sales data table, and for each and every row, it should call. Okay, so create trigger followed by that, the trigger name. Before inserting the data on the sales data table for each and every row, it has to execute the function. So this will go here and it will execute this function, which will compute the total price and insert it into the table. Okay, so I'm going to run the trigger. Now, when I insert data into the table, the function and the trigger are created. Now, when I go and try to insert data into the table, let me show you. You see, down here, it has inserted the data, but while inserting, when we write a simple insert statement, what happened? Internally, it invoked the trigger before insert. So the moment it sees an insert statement coming on the table, it's going to execute this procedure because we have a trigger in place for insert. Whenever data is being inserted into the table, a trigger is in place, which is monitoring the insert statements. The moment you write an insert statement, it will call the procedure. It will trigger the procedure. So what will happen? This procedure will become active and it will compute the total price as a product of sales and quantity. Okay, and upon inserting, you can see how the data is automatically calculated. The entry to be made in the total price column is computed and kept over there. So that is the purpose of triggers. Again, this is just not much in scope because as a data analyst or as a data scientist for whom this course is actually designed, you may not write any triggers or functions. This is mostly what data engineers or database administrators would do. But having a knowledge of these things could come in handy sometimes. So as a data analyst or a scientist, you may never actually write a trigger. You may never actually invoke a function. However, knowing it, this is all for your information kind of thing. Okay, FYI kind of a thing, that something called as triggers are there, which admins and data engineers might write to take care of certain aspects in the table, especially when data is being inserted or updated in the table. Okay, so here I will stop the discussion for today. Tomorrow I will give you another example on triggers with the update, while updating the record, how to invoke something. This is with insert. Tomorrow I'll show you with update. And after that, we will proceed to talking about the concept of indexes, which is important. And we will talk about the concept about DCL commands. That is the agenda for tomorrow's session. Okay, so thank you all so much for your support. I request you all to kindly like the video if you found it helpful, if you've learned something new today. It would be of great encouragement. And I'm sure all of you have already subscribed. Thank you so much for that. But anybody who is new on the channel, who has not yet subscribed, I request you all to subscribe. It would be a great motivation to us. Yeah, you need to do a little bit of homework for tomorrow's session. Right. Okay. Thank you so much. If you'll have any doubts or questions, I shall take up. Happy Ugadi to all of you. Thank you then. No questions. That's okay. Bye-bye.